ready for some football, some Texans Today party?
Welcome into Texans Today, presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Jeremy Chuggs, and this is another award-winning mailbag here on Texans Today. What award, you might ask? Well, it's my mom's favorite segment. She absolutely loves the mailbags, and that's why we keep on doing them. All these questions are from our live show on May 13th, the day before schedule release day. So if you see any questions about the schedule release, obviously this was made before we knew about the Texans schedule. All the questions, like I said, are from our loyal subscribers who tuned in to our live shows. We go live on Wednesdays, 3:30 Central Time. If you are watching this live, you can still get a question in. Use that hashtag Texans or Super Chat to get on the program. First up, condition-based in the building. Base. Hashtag Texans. You've been going hard on Klein. What do you think now since the new car smell is gone? Going hard on Klein. I don't know. I would say I was going hard on him in either direction on the draft night. I believe I gave him a C+. Since then, I feel a little bit better. I talked to our Michigan host here at Chat Sports, James Yoder, and he kind of swayed me into the fact that, he didn't have a quarterback this past season. They had a freshman in Bryce Underwood. He was behind a ton of great tight ends. Colston Loveland went, I believe, number 10 to the Bears last year. And then you have, A.J. Barner. You have Luke Schoonmaker, guys that he was sitting behind at Michigan. He was a team captain. He was somebody who, the coaching staff really valued there in Ann Arbor. So it makes me feel better about all those things of, his lack of production in college football, even though that does worry me a little bit, the fact that he didn't really produce as much for the Wolverines. But he's an athletic guy. He is somebody who has a good mentality, a swarm mentality that the Texans really liked. What is one of, D'Amico Ryan's favorite interviews at the NFL Combine. So all those things make me feel a little bit better, but it's, cautiously optimistic about it, right? Like maybe I'm more of like a B- around his pick at the moment. I hope he proves us all wrong. I hope he makes the Texans look like absolute geniuses and he balls out this season. But it's tough, right? The Texans, they came out and said they viewed him as the second best tight end in this draft class. I still necessarily don't feel that way around Marlin Klein. I think maybe there were some other options that the Texans could have looked at, but still I'm hoping the best for Klein and hoping that he absolutely balls out for the Texans this year. He's worked out at Texans rookie minicamp, so not a lot to work off of, but I will say that he does look good out there running routes. So we'll have to see for the season. Next up, bad driver. Texans, if he's healthy, would you bring back Joe Mixon? No, I would not. And that's a big caveat, right? Because I don't think he's healthy. And I don't think he'll, play another game. He missed all of 2025 with a foot injury. Now, there's a lot of rumors of what it could be. There's, a lot of people saying that he had a setback with his injury and had a illness along with his, foot injury that, caused him to not be able to, rehab it properly, not being able to, help the problem with that foot. So I would say, he's still unsigned right now. So, if the Texans wanted to, they could bring him back. I just don't think they will, right? Like, I don't think they already moved on from him. They already cut him. They already went ahead and made the move to trade for David Montgomery. Maybe a team, I would say 100% of the team is going to run him through a very strenuous, evaluation in his physical before they sign him. But I could see teams maybe bringing him in depending on if, they're light at the running back position or they have an injury in training camp. Maybe they kick the tires on Joe Mixon, but I don't think he plays this season. Good question here, Lopez. What do y'all think? Do you think Joe Mixon will play this year? Give me a yes, give me a no. I will say all the guys here at Chat Sports, once a week, I always get the question, what's the deal with Joe Mixon? Is he going to play this year? Like, what should my team sign him? I would say no, right? Like, I don't think that he's going to sign with the team. I don't think he's going to, play with the team this season just because, missing a whole year of football, especially at the running back spot. We've seen what it does, right? Like, even with guys who weren't necessarily coming off of injury, like Le'Veon Bell sat out a year, was not the same guy. So I don't believe that a team is going to take a risk on Joe Mixon. If they do, it's going to be a vet min deal. And, maybe he does play, but I would be leaning towards no. I am leaning towards getting started with Prize Picks and having you getting started with Prize Picks because they are America's #1 fantasy sports app out there for good reason. Get started today with Prize Picks. Playoff basketball is getting going. Playoff hockey is here. Baseball is in full swing. There's no better place to cash in on all the sports that you're watching than with our friends over at Prize Picks. And not only the player picks that you know and love, putting in those lineups with 2 to 6 players and going more or less on their stat projections, they also have team picks that you can get started with from our friends over at Prize Picks. You can pick winners, pick spreads, pick totals, all on the same app that you do your player lineup. So get started today with our friends over at Prize Picks. New users, make sure you listen up. Download the Prize Picks app today, and you can put in a lineup just like this. This is my season-long projections for this year in football. Copy my lineup on the social feeds feature, and we have a special deal for you. New users, download the Prize Picks app today with the link in the comments and description, and use code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code HMA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. All that information down in the comments and description of today's show. Get started today with our friends over at Prize Picks. All right, ATX Jack. Hashtag Texans. What cut/trade candidate do you think the Texans would look to add wide receiver, edge, cornerback? I would say probably maybe edge, maybe I think out of these, if they're going to trade for anybody, maybe wide receiver. I was sitting next to our Patriots host today, and he was saying that the Patriots want to trade Kayshon Boutte, who, if you remember, last year absolutely torched the Texans in the divisional round. He had that one-handed grab past Derek Stingley. He had a couple very clutch grabs up against the Texans in the playoffs last year. He said that he's on the chopping block, that the Patriots might trade or cut him. That's a name that I would look at the wide receiver spot if you really want to add another good young player to this wide receiver room. That would be an interesting name. In terms of edge rushers, there's a bunch of free agents that are already out there that we've discussed here on the show, right? Like Von Miller, he posted a picture with CJ Stroud on IG. Maybe he wants to take a little bit of a pay cut and be the third edge rusher. We've talked about, other, edge rushers, Jadeveon Clowney. Derek Barnett is still a free agent who's played with the Texans the past 2 years. He's an interesting name. In terms of cornerback, I don't know if any trade or cut candidates necessarily at corner for the Texans. They obviously want to add somebody, but it'll be a lower level name, maybe a older free agent that they could add at that position. I think if they look to trade for anybody or like a cut trade candidate, I think wide receiver might be the one that they're looking at. ATX Jack. James Gibson with the $20 super chat. Appreciate you, Mr. Gibson. What does it take for CJ and our offensive line moves to finally silence the critics and also make it to the big game? I think, one, it's, getting to the playoffs, obviously. I would say if we were able to get the #1 seed in the AFC. If the Texans were able to get the #1 seed in the AFC, that would shut everybody up. Because not only do you get past the wild card round automatically, you get a bye week that week, you also get a home game in the divisional round, the first time the Texans would ever have a home game in the divisional round. I think that would be huge for this Texans squad because you look over the past, 3 seasons, the divisional games that they've lost in Baltimore, in Kansas City, and this past year, right, like, it's just the fact that, always having to play in the elements. You're playing like in New England in the snow, right? Like if the Texans were able to get the #1 seed, I think that would be massive for this team, for this franchise, if they could get that #1 seed because, that would be able to, get them one game to get to the AFC Championship game. That would be massive. So in terms of silencing the doubters, silencing the haters, I think, we've seen this team win the division 2 years in a row. We've seen this team win wild card games 3 years in a row. Can they get to the AFC Championship game? And I think one of the first steps to that would be if they could get the #1 seed in the AFC and get a home game in the divisional round, that would be massive. So first seed or the second seed to make sure you get that home game. That would be massive for this team. Bayou Raider in the building. What's up, man? How we doing? B Fuentes checking in. Hashtag Texans, do you think our receiver room needs anyone else? Can Monty be a top 10 running back behind this O-line? I think so. I think Montgomery, he's not going to be a guy who, is going to, I think, be a top 5 running back. But I do believe that Montgomery will help C.J. Stroud this year and behind this offensive line, right? Like, he's still 28 years old. And people talk about, oh, well, the past couple of years, like, he's been, the shadow to Jahmyr Gibbs. That, to me, means he's been able to, keep some tread on those tires a little bit, right? Like, he hasn't been running to the ground the past 2 years. He's been in a solid 1-2 punch with Jahmyr Gibbs. So, I mean, if I'm looking at fantasy, right, like, I'm taking David Montgomery this year because he's going to get a much elevated role behind a much improved offensive line. And as we talked about here on the show, Ed Ingram, Braden Smith, 2 great run-blocking offensive linemen. I think you have that on the right side, possibly Keelan Rutledge at center to help out and, like, bring some more nastiness. That'll be, possibly some really good running lanes for David Montgomery, Woody Marks this next season. And in terms of the wide receiver room, I am very high on Jaden Higgins. I think he's going to do really well this season. We hope that Tank Dell is back to the Tank Dell that we know and love. And, we all know what Nico Collins can do if he can stay healthy. That's a big, the if with Nico Collins. If he can stay healthy for this entire year for the playoffs for this team, the sky's the limit, right? Like, I think the receiver room, does it need anybody else? No, not necessarily, but, the Achilles heel has been the injuries. So, if you can bring some more insurance, just in case there's an injury, just in case whatever, that would make me as a Texans fan feel a little bit better about this wide receiver room. But, as it stands, I'm cool with the guys we have. It's just the injury bug. That is what scares me with this Texans wide receiver room. Anointed Stan checking in. In your opinion, what are the chances we extend Nico? He'll be 29 when he will be a free agent. I think, the Texans have showed they are willing to pay their guys if they show out. So, like, another year of Nico Collins being a top 10, top 12 level receiver, I think they'll definitely look to possibly extend him as early as next offseason if they can. Add some more years onto the end of his contract, give him a good, little pay raise, something that he definitely deserves. He's on the best contract in the NFL right now. He's getting paid $25 million at the output that he's putting out. He's been awesome. So I would say, definitely next offseason, especially if he balls out this year, I would look for Nico Collins to, maybe even if it's a 1-year extension, just to give him that, pay raise. I could definitely see that. Your fearless leader coming in. How will the Texans use Jaylin Noel in 2026? Hopefully a lot more, right? Like, hopefully they use Jaylin Noel a lot more than they did this past year. I actually think we have a cool graphic for Jaylin Noel. Yep. I saw this. I got Texans Jacob tweeted it out. Jaylin Noel's route tree in 2025. And hopefully we see a lot more of this, right? Because I feel like a lot of the times he was used, just in, the screen game a ton in terms of, the short to intermediate routes, slant, flat, comeback routes. We didn't really see him get a lot of usage downfield. And I feel like a lot of the games I saw Jaylin Noel, he was, offensive snaps 25% to 26% to 27%. I think, he definitely could get a lot more usage this year, and I hope he does because, we saw what he was able to do in the return game as a punt returner. He's electric with the ball in his hand. So I'd like to see Nick Caley try to get Noel more involved this season. Oh, this is a good question, Lopez. Let me know down below who gets more catches in 2026. Predict it for me. Do you think it's Tank Dell type TD? Do you think it's Jaylin Noel type JN down below in the comment section? Who do you think gets more catches in this Texans offense in 2026? I'm interested to see what y'all have to say. I'm probably going. I'm gonna go Dell. I'm gonna go Tank Dell. I think he's back. I think he's gonna be healthy this year for the Texans. Give me Tank Dell on that one. And that's how I'm gonna end the show. Hopefully Tank Dell balls out this season for the Texans, and hopefully this offense hopefully they both ball out. Hopefully it's Jaylin Noel and Tank Dell. Let me know your answers down below in the comment section. And if you made it to the end of the video, while you're down there, make sure to hit that sub button. Free Texans content all year long. You know we got you covered here on Texans Today.